twice. Good morning. My name is Hannah Crumrine. I'm the Youth Suicide Prevention Coordinator here at the Department of Education. I oversee the Idaho Youth Suicide Prevention Program. I've been doing that for about 5 years. We serve all of Idaho's districts and charter schools statewide and help them implement suicide prevention efforts in their own school. My intent here today is to provide you with a bunch of resources to help support your students. But before we do that, I wanted to share some additional information that I think helps you get an understanding and a lay of the land of suicide prevention efforts here in Idaho. So we're going to go over some terminology. We're going to go over some Idaho-specific data. I want to talk or introduce you to the idea of upstream prevention if that's new to you. And then we're going to go over 3 evidence-based practices that are proven to help keep kids safe. And then I'll share resources with you that will support all the things that we talked about beforehand. I do want to make this very clear that this is not a suicide prevention training, so it's going to be very high level. I'm hoping that the resources I share with you will answer maybe some of those questions, and I'll be providing you with some free training options. Okay, I also wanted to say that this is going to be about a 30-minute presentation. I was expecting to talk for 20 minutes, leave 10 minutes for questions, but you are welcome to interrupt me at any time during my presentation. I'd rather have a dialogue than wait till the end. So I think Rachel's going to be monitoring the chat for me, and I know you can raise your hand. So please interrupt at any point if you need to. So terminology. In suicide prevention, there are some ways we talk about suicide, some do's and don'ts. So I wanted to go over those with you this morning to make sure we're all on the same page with how we talk about suicide. And most importantly, I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page about understanding what suicidal behaviors are. So I have 3 definitions here for you. The first is suicidal ideation, which refers to thinking about, considering, or planning suicide. The second is a suicide attempt, which is a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially harmful behavior with the intent to die. And lastly, suicide, which by definition is a death caused by self-directed, harmful behavior with the intent to die. So the key takeaway there is really the intent to die. A suicide would be determined to be so if the intent to die is there. That's the key piece. So when we talk about suicide prevention, these are the 3 areas that we are trying to prevent or mitigate. There are also some very specific ways we talk about suicide. This table here I pulled from an organization in Australia. They've developed a couple of what they call charter language guides to help people talk about various public health issues, suicide being one of them. Here in the States, my colleagues and I all abide by these same guidelines. So I was going to go over them really quickly with you. And the intent behind this is that we are trying to destigmatize suicide so that people will engage in help-seeking behavior and talk about it. So we do this to make talking about suicide safer. So we don't say a successful or a completed suicide anymore. We say someone died by suicide. And this is to prevent the idea that suicide is a desired or a positive outcome. We also don't say committed suicide, because if you commit something, that's usually associated with a crime or a sin. So we say someone took their own life or it was a suicide death. We also don't say a suicide epidemic. In the next section, you'll hear me talk about higher rates. And that's because the word epidemic sensationalized suicide. And that's definitely something we want to avoid, particularly when we're talking about youth or talking to youth, because they tend to normalize things. And we would never want that to happen when we're talking to a youth. We also don't say failed suicide. Again, that suggests that suicide is the desired outcome, and it also glamorizes the attempt. And we don't say political suicide. We want to use suicide within the context of a suicide death, because we don't want to throw it around casually. So those are some of the things that are important to know about how we talk about suicide at the Department of Education and here in Idaho. And I think if you take one thing away from this slide, I would really encourage you to stop using the term committed suicide. I think that would go a long way to help us destigmatize death by suicide. Anybody have any questions about terminology? Okay. So I also wanted to share some Idaho statistics with you. And I want to lead this by saying, one, we would never reduce a child to a number or a statistic. That feels really awful, but I do think it is necessary to understand what suicide prevention looks like in Idaho by sharing these numbers with you so that we can help our youth. And two, I also think it's important for you to know that when we talk to students, we never share statistics. It goes against best practices. Again, because I just said students tend to normalize things. We don't want to give the impression that suicide is a normal response or a response that's prevalent, because that's not the case, and we don't want children to think that because it's unsafe. So I would caution you, if you were going to talk to your children about suicide today or in the future, not to share the information I'm going to give you on the next few slides about statistics. It's just not going to be helpful to them, but I think it will be helpful to you. So I just wanted to give you kind of some information that would help you see how Idaho compares nationally and to some of our other states when we talk about the number of lives lost to suicide. So this information is from the American Health Rankings website. The data is from 2020 to 2022, and it's specific to adolescents aged 15 to 19. One of the frustrating things about suicide prevention work is that there's no standardized age group that we're looking at. So this data set is for ages 15 to 19. We have other data sets that are 13 to 17. So it's not a true apples to apples, but it's still the most accurate information we have, and it still gives you a good picture. But just keep in mind, we're talking about slightly different groups of ages on some of these slides. So here you can see that among 47 states and US territories, Idaho ranks 41 in its suicide rate. So our rate was, for that 2-year period, was 19.3 per 100,000 adolescents ages 15 to 19, which is actually quite high. You can see there that we are in the dark blue color. This is just a table from that same website that shows you the states with the lowest rank and the highest rate. So you can see New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut all have very low rates, 5-point various percentages for every 100,000 students. The bottom states are Alaska, South Dakota, and Montana. And in Idaho, it's hovering around that 41 rank with Kansas and Colorado. This next slide from the same organization, just showing how we compare to the national average. So the national average is that line on the bottom with the squares, and Idaho is the line on the top with the circles. And you can see here, this is that 19.3 rate that I showed you in the other slides. So what this means in Idaho is that Idaho generally averages around 22 youth suicide deaths per year, and that would be ages 0 to 17 is how Idaho captures it. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but it usually hovers around that rate, which typically means suicide is the second leading cause of death among adolescents in Idaho. But I also want to point out that youth suicide, although it's devastating, is significantly rare. Not to minimize any loss, but I think it's important to know, again, we're not experiencing a suicide epidemic. That 22, those 22 losses are actually close to less than 1/10 of a percentage point. So we're not losing a lot of students to suicide. Again, not to diminish that, but I don't want to scare anyone into thinking this is an epidemic. It's a very serious problem. But you'll see on the next slide, thinking about suicide is more prevalent than actually dying by suicide. So the next couple of slides are taken from the Idaho Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2019. Idaho has stopped participating in this survey, so that's the most recent data we have, but I think these numbers have stayed pretty consistent. And again, it gives you a view of how Idaho students compare nationally. So this question isn't specific to suicide. It's asking students to answer whether they have ever felt so sad or hopeless in the last year that they stopped doing activities. And you'll see here, Idaho is shaded out in gray, and we are higher than the national average. We also have more female students reporting feeling this way than male students, and that will remain consistent on the other slides to come. This is the percentage of students who seriously considered attempting suicide in the past 12 months. Again, you can see that our averages are higher than the national average. This is the same question, it just maps it out over a 10-year period. So you can see that within that 10-year period, students who seriously considered attempting suicide increased. This question is specific to the number of students who made a plan about how they would attempt suicide in the last year. And this slide is the percentage of students who reported making a suicide attempt at least once in the past year. And again, you can see we are higher than the national average, and more female students reported making an attempt than male students. I know this is, it can be depressing, but I want to remind everyone that recovery is the norm, and that's something we actually emphasize in all of our trainings, that by and large, people who think about suicide or even make an attempt go on to recover. So it's important to know not only is recovery the norm, but most teens who are suicidal don't actually want to die. They're just in so much emotional pain that they don't know how to make it stop other than considering ending their life. But the good news is that suicide is largely preventable, and early identification, timely treatment, and support from family, friends, and your community plays a key role. So I'm so glad that you joined today, because by being here, that's exactly what you're doing. So I applaud you for that. Any questions about statistics? Okay, I want to move on briefly to introducing the idea of upstream prevention. If you're not familiar with that idea, it just means that we move so far back upstream in our prevention efforts that we are stopping an adverse outcome before it even starts. Because often when we're talking about prevention, something has already happened to trigger those preventative efforts. So this idea is just to get way ahead of the problem. So I wanted to talk to you about that, because I think it's something that we need to be sharing with more people and planting that seed in people's minds that there's so much they can be doing, or a lot of the things they're already doing are probably upstream. So I just have 2 slides with protective factors on them. I'm not going to read them to you. I'll give you a couple seconds to look at them. But as a parent or a caregiver, helping your children have these protective factors will go a long way to support them in all of their, not just mental and behavioral health skills, but skills across the board. And these are proven to be protective factors and life-saving factors. On this next slide, there are 8 protective factors that I actually borrowed from Sources of Strength, which is a national suicide prevention program the Department of Education helps schools implement. And the theory behind that is that they have these 8 protective factors on their wheel of strength. And by helping students recognize they have these and when to use them, they help protect them not only against suicide, but all kinds of other risky behaviors like substance misuse, dating violence, absenteeism, tardyism, bullyism, or bullying. I shouldn't be throwing isms on all those things. So these are just some other easy ways to identify protective factors that you can help support your children with. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we jump over to resources is just 3 things that are proven to save lives. And I will give you resources for all of these things, plus a few more. So the first one is suicide prevention gatekeeper trainings. The second one is lethal means safe storage. And the third one is safety planning. And all of these things have been studied by academics, researched, and their findings have been published in peer-reviewed journals that prove these things save lives. So I am going to hopefully share another screen. Can you all see a web page?
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that we have the Q&A box at the bottom. So if you have a question, the Q&A box at the bottom would be the place to post that question, and we'll be able to see it.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so this first website that I have pulled up is a free training hosted by the Department of Education. It is a move at your own pace QPR suicide prevention gatekeeper training. And a gatekeeper is someone who is in a position to recognize a crisis and the warning signs that someone might be contemplating suicide. QPR is an evidence-based training. It stands for question, persuade, and refer. And it is available to any adult over the age of 18 who interacts with youth, which is pretty much everyone in our communities. So like I said, again, I'm going to make sure you guys get links to all of this. Actually, I can do that now, maybe. Nope, I can't. I'll do it at the end. It takes about 45 to 90 minutes, depending on how you go at your own pace. And this training will teach you how to identify risk factors and warning signs, how to ask someone about suicide, and actually best practices is that we ask someone directly about suicide and say, are you thinking about suicide? And this will teach you how to do that, give you the confidence to do that. And then it teaches you how to safely get someone to help, because that's not your job. That's a great resource. The other tabs I have pulled up are, this is a tab from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They have a national Idaho chapter. They offer a lot of trainings, a lot of help resources. It's a great place to go to find help. But this is just an informational page about risk factors, protective factors, and warning signs. And the reason I have it pulled up and wanted to share with you, again, because it includes those protective factors. I think it's really important to focus on assets and positive things as well. So I'll share this with you. I also like at the bottom here that it has a video for parents about drinking and suicide. I think that's helpful. The Nationwide Children's Hospital in Ohio, I believe, does a lot of suicide prevention work within their state and nationally, and they've just developed a lot of really good tools to help parents navigate a child who might be having suicidal behaviors. So this is a flyer that they put out about how to respond to warning signs that I thought was great. This is the Kids Mental Health Foundation website that doesn't seem to be loading. There it goes, fantastic. They have a whole bunch of great resources specific to suicide prevention. What I like about this is that they have a video about how to talk to students younger than 12. Younger students are often left out of the conversation, but we do know that students as young as 5 or 6 can experience ideation. They also are just a great general mental health resource. This is helpguide.org. They have, this page was recommended to me by a peer in another state, but this is a great place to just go and get some questions answered. They have articles about how to support yourself and your students. So I wanted to share that with you. So that's kind of all falls under the gatekeeper, learning the warning signs, learning what to do, best practice. The next couple tabs I have pulled up are specific to lethal means. Here in Idaho, we have a lot of guns. I'm a gun owner, and knowing that, it's very important, knowing that we have a lot of guns, it's very important that we're talking about lethal means safety in a way that focuses on protecting kids in a way that doesn't get politicized. So I have just a couple websites up here that I think are fantastic that could help you store not only firearms, but other lethal means. So this is a website out of California that actually kind of like a choose your own adventure. It would help you select, and I think I could even go back a little further. Just based on the scenario that you are working with and what you need to do to keep your kids safe, they'll walk you through the steps you can take, and then you end up with your own plan. This is specific to suicide safety. So just some more ideas for how to keep people safe by locking up not only firearms, but medications, things that can be used for suffocation, and even more. So that's a great website. And then this is specific, not just, it's generalized, it's not specific to suicide, but it's just how adults can keep kids safe if they do have guns in the home. And then this last one is again from Nationwide Children's Hospital, just a great 3-page handout with some information about keeping children safe from guns and other lethal means. And this, I think the lethal means can be a part of the preventative conversation. Like if you have guns, you should just be storing them safely. But definitely if your child has indicated that they're having suicidal thoughts, lethal means safety becomes an intervention strategy. And then the last thing I have pulled up kind of in this prevention piece is a website that's new to me. It's out of California. I was looking at it this morning, so scroll to the bottom, but it's Never a Bother, and it's about supporting youth in your care. They actually have 3 versions of it. It's you're here for yourself, a friend, or for youth in your care. And it has some great information about how to talk to kids about suicide, support them if they're having suicidal ideation. There's different scenarios, like my child shared that their friend is thinking about suicide. Again, more about going over the warning signs. I think this is a great one. How do I know if my teen is just being a teen versus when I should worry? It talks about the myth that if we ask about suicide, we're planting the seed, and that's not true. We actually know that asking the question directly can save a life, because the sense of relief that people feel when you ask them that. So there's just some really good resources here. I would encourage you, I'm really excited about this website. I would encourage you to go to it. And again, they have some videos specific to supporting teens. And then again, I like this too, because it's focusing on positive outcomes as well, which I think is so important to this conversation. I also have, I had a web page pulled up with, oh gosh, did I lose it? A whole bunch of intervention resources. So of course it's gone. Let me restore it. Okay, not too much of a hiccup. So these are some resources that would fall under intervention. Perhaps you're supporting a child who has expressed ideation or who has made an attempt. So these are some resources you would need to help them. So again, another great resource from Nationwide Children's Hospital with some tips for parents to help their child who has come forward and said, I am thinking about suicide, I'm having suicidal thoughts. This is a help guide from the National Association of School Psychologists. It goes over some risk factors and interventions, but the primary focus of it is how to keep your home safe beyond lethal means storage. So this is a really great resource about how to connect with your children, what to do, the help you can give them. The other thing I had listed on those 3 things that work is safety planning. And this is an example of a safety plan. A safety plan is something anyone can create to help them move through feelings of suicidal thoughts and how that they can stop those thoughts on their own or with the help of someone else. So what you do is, if you were to do this with your child, you would sit down with them side by side and have them fill it out while you helped and supported them, because even the act of creating this plan is very soothing to people who experience suicidal ideation. So they identify warning signs, like how they know those thoughts are coming on, and then they identify things they can do on their own to help those thoughts go away. If that doesn't work, they can identify people or places that could help them. And then if they move into crisis mode, none of those things are able to help them go back to feeling okay. They identify people who they could call in a crisis, make sure you have permission from those people. And then they have the names of their emergency contacts and their healthcare providers if it escalates to that level. Again, this is an evidence-based practice. There's been a lot of studies that instead of hospitalizing people, if they have a really good safety plan in place, they could go home and be okay rather than having to be hospitalized. It also comes in Spanish on this version. And the next couple of slides are all about safety plan. Here's just another version. Social Work Tech made this. It's a little more kid-friendly, I suppose. And then here is an article for parents who, it's a help article about how to make a safety plan with your student. There are also safety plans for elementary age children that are focused on images and things that they can select. So this is one that Utah gave me permission to use. So one version of that. It's also a family safety plan. So you do it with your, involves the entire family, not just the student. And then here's another one for younger students about when they get upset, not necessarily specific to suicide, but helping them with those big emotions early on, which again could be considered an upstream prevention piece. Any questions so far? Let me keep going with my last few resources. Okay. This is from Nationwide Children's Hospital. It just is a really great resource that identifies the different types of mental health care a family might encounter if they're supporting a student who's having ideation or made an attempt. Because I think there's a lot of questions about what that process might look like. And this is another handout from them about what to expect if you do end up in the ED. This is another really, really great comprehensive resource from the Zero Suicide project, which also works in partnership with Nationwide Children's Hospital. And it's for parents, it's resources for parents after their student has made an attempt. And there is a video you can watch. All of these parents in here supported a child after an attempt. But then it goes on to provide just a really comprehensive wealth of resources about how to support your other children, as well as the child who made an attempt. And there are resources about how to support yourself as well. So this is something I've recently learned about within the last couple of months, and I have been sharing far and wide with people. I'm just scrolling through it so you can see like how comprehensive it is. There's resources for returning to school, which is really important. So yeah, that's a great resource. Then the next resources I'm going to share are specific to grief and loss. So here at the Department of Education, upon request, our program responds to any sudden death. It doesn't have to be a suicide. So we have some general grief resources that we share with people who are grieving the loss of a loved one. Some of these, I'm not sure which one. Some of these also have resources for divorce or other types of loss that a student might need support with. So I'll just throw that out there. But the Dougie Center is based out of Portland. They are a great resource if you're looking for ideas to support students at different age ranges. They also have some support groups and training. Highmark Caring Place is another grief center that has resources for youth. And then the National Alliance on Children's Grief is another great resource. They have like a clearinghouse of resources that you can move through to find, again, all types of different resources. I'll just pull it up really quick. Yeah, so here's something specific for I'm a caregiver. So those are all the resources I had wanted to share with you this morning. Again, this wasn't meant to be a training, just an opportunity to share some of the things that I know that are available to parents and families and guardians. So with that, I will take questions if there's things that you were interested in that didn't get answered. If there are specific resources you're looking for, I could track those down for you. I'm here to help in any way I can.
Anna, do you think there's a way to post some of those links into the chat box? I think you have the power to make the chat visible to everybody.
Do I? Let's see. I have. It won't let me copy and paste, but I have.
Okay. We can collect all of these and put them on a document, send them out.
Well, I have them on a document, so I stopped sharing. So let me see if that will help me do it. Maybe if I go out of the slideshow. Yeah, I had intended to put it in there. No, it doesn't link it. Let me try this. So this link hopefully takes everyone to a Microsoft list site that has all of those individually.
And it looks like that went to just you and me, maybe. This is set up differently. I don't know how to make it. It looks like I lost the privilege to make it go to the participants. Maybe you can.
Everyone. Okay.
There we go. Okay. I bet you that works.
Okay. So that is a link to a document that should have everything. Let me go back to share my screen. So that should take everybody to a document that looks like this, and it has all of those sites and resources in it. I should also put in our own program website. This isn't necessarily specific to parents, which is why I didn't share a lot of it. This is our website that we support districts and schools with, but it is also a great resource. Are there any questions for me? I don't see anything.
I don't see any questions coming through right now.
Okay. Well, let me throw my email in there. If I can spell it. Nope. 3 times the charm. Okay. If anybody needs to get a hold of me, there is my email.
Great. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to click on that link to the document with all of the resources. We really appreciate you guys joining us today. And I'm going to stop recording.